Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with the lovely Justine Jones of Employed to Serve to talk about the upcoming new record, Conquering, out September 17th on Spine Farm. How's it going with you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on the channel to talk about this kick-ass record that I've had the pleasure to listen to already. And the first question that I have for you is, who or what are you guys conquering with this album?
So the album title essentially means like the conquering of the self. So like kind of overcoming your ego, and just sort of like it's to like conquering adversity and just essentially sort of like it's quite a positive message. We wanted to write a fairly positive album, especially given the past 18 or so months we've had, and I feel like we've achieved it. I feel like it's a cheerleader album for people when they're down.
With a kick and aggression built into it.
Yeah, I've been I like kind of going off the sort of, the hate breed perseverance, the kind of aggressive personal trainer, like you can do
it. Were there any challenges during the making of this record that in your mind will make this album very unique to you, allowing you to kind of like every time you see this record takes you back to that difficult moment in terms of creating the album or in the studio or a song or something like that?
I think I'd actually look upon it fondly because it was like the main focus of my year last year and our year as a band. It was just really nice to have something positive to work on, because we were definitely most of us were lucky enough to be able to work, apart from a couple of members. So yeah, a lot of us were just sort of twiddling our thumbs and not really knowing what to do with our evening. So this album provided a nice sort of respite from that, so that was good. And it was also recorded during the winter as well, when like lockdown kind of eased a little bit. So yeah, it was quite nice for like once actually having the time to record it, because usually we have to fit it in between like social things or touring, so we literally had nothing else to do, so we just wrote this over the summer last year.
When you look at the progression of the band across 4 records, what do you feel has matured the most? The vision that you guys had or the sound that represents that vision?
I think it's a bit of both, really. I feel like, it's about I suppose it will be 3 years on from when we recorded Eternal Forward Motion. I feel like we've grown a lot as people, especially during like the lockdown. Like I kind of think it gives you time to sort of reflect on life and actually slow down for once. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both, and we really tried to push ourselves musically on this record as well to make the best record we could.
This album feels very raw, like very organic. It's almost like you guys had a jam session and somebody put a microphone there and that's what was recorded and that's what you're giving us. It has almost that live sound, even though it's a studio record. Was that an important element that you guys wanted to really come across to fans and listeners with this record? Or it was just more natural how it happened?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we recorded it to click like with all of our other records, but we wanted to have that more organic sound, like the sort of more abrasive kind of, like how like Slipknot had their sort of self-titled that sound, like it was just sort of very raw. And we kind of wanted to keep that because the sort of really overproduced metal sound like isn't really for us. So yeah, with Lewis, who we recorded our album with, and all of our albums, in fact, we've always wanted to sort of keep that sort of feeling of a live element, but while still being very much to a click, if that makes sense.
You mentioned already that this album has a little bit of a positive outlook. Are you trying to transmit a positive outlook? How are you able to transmit a positive outlook and still keep the energy level, that raw aggression, that anger? It sounds like anger sometimes, when you're listening to the album. How are you able to match those two very distinct approaches together as one?
I think it's just a direction of energy, really. Like, how when you go for a run, you can get rid of like a lot of aggression and anger, and it can turn into sort of euphoria. So that's kind of like what we aimed for in this album. Sort of like that runner's high, or like the mosh pit high, I guess. So yeah, like you can be aggressively happy.
When I looked at this record and I started listening to it, to me, there were 2 songs that have a very important defined role in terms of where they are in the structure of the record. And that is Universal Chokehold, which is the opening track, and then Stand Alone as the closing track. Do you feel like these 2 songs have to be where they are in order to balance out the overall design of the record, while everything else in the middle could kind of come and go? It doesn't have as much of a specific role.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we wrote those in mind for bookending the album. We wanted, like, we've always like sort of classically gone for big intros and outros on our albums, because we just like the idea of it being sort of like a story that starts and ends like prominently. So yeah, like we wanted to sort of really play with getting strings and stuff on Universal Chokehold, which is really fun, and I'm very excited to execute that live. We'll probably have that on track for the beginning, but hopefully for one-offs we can get actual string players. But yeah, like we just tried to make it as expansive as possible, because it's just something we've always enjoyed doing, like adding loads of textures to our record, and it always sort of makes sense to do that on the first and last track of the album.
Is it important to have that defined path? Because you want the album to be as fluid as possible for the listener, so that when you press play, you don't get sidetracked with something else. You almost feel like you're on this roller coaster ride, and you really want to stay on that ride all the way through. So how much time do you guys spend defining those parameters? Like, this song has to go here, this song has to go there, and then we can do something else with the rest.
We spend quite a lot of time. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. Like, for example, like we'll have like a sit down and listen to like loads of rough tracks and be like, oh, okay, so we need an opener now. So Sammy will sort of go in to write that like track with that idea in mind. But yeah, for the most part, like it doesn't take us too long, because I think we've kind of got a good gauge, like because we're 8 years in now, of what works where in an album. But yeah, we did struggle to pick singles, mainly because like we felt like quite a few of the songs could in theory do well as singles. So yeah, like it's quite fun doing like sitting down and sort of actually working out where everything should go. But yeah, for the most part, it's quite simple. It's quite an easy ride.
This album has a lot of grooviness. Are you okay with defining this album as a groovy record?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love like groovy metal. I like sounds lame, but I love like stuff like, you know, Gajira, like, you know, in Deftones, like sort of the swerves and sort of like the grooves. I just think it's so fun to play and watch live. Yeah, so it's kind of something we've kind of adopted from about our second record, I guess. Some people call us employed to swerve, which
I like that. You know what? I'm going to steal that. I'm going to definitely steal that, and I'm going to start referring to you guys as that. Because this record, you mentioned Hatebreed early on our conversation here, and when I was listening to this album, I definitely could pick up some Hatebreed influences, but I also could pick up some Machine Head influences as I'm going through the record. I felt like this album, when you compare with the previous record, perhaps you guys turned that grooviness knob all the way to 11. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, for sure. Like we wanted to have a more metal record as well and pay homage to like bands like Machine Head, Lamb of God, Fear Factory, Morbid Angel, like kind of all the bands that we listened to when we were younger and like first got into metal. So yeah, I feel like we kind of achieved that. Excuse me.
Having that groovy sound and having this gradual process that you guys had, this evolution that the band has seen across every single record, does that make it harder for people to define the band under one genre? And do you guys even care about having an umbrella over you?
I don't mind. So basically, with this record, we did try to go a bit more distinctively metal, because we've always straddled genres. Like we kind of felt a bit too hardcore for the metal kids and a bit too metal for the hardcore kids. So with this album, we kind of definitively went a bit more metal. But yeah, like either way, it just shows that we kind of try and do something different rather than just sort of do it paid by numbers. So yeah, I'm happy with whatever, but just as long as we fit somewhere on a lineup, I'm happy.
As long as people are listening.
Yeah, exactly.
How much of your vocal performance gets impacted by the sound that the songs have, the direction that the songs are going musically? Do you take inspiration of that drive and then try to bring your vocals into it? How does that dynamic work?
Yeah, so I do spend a lot of time sort of trying to match the tracks with my vocals as much as possible. Like I try and do different pitches to sort of vary up the album. With this one as well, we had loads more vocals from Sammy, which I think kind of like helps break up everything and just sounds a bit more different, and I think a bit more exciting. So fingers crossed everyone thinks the same.
That was going to be my next question: is how do you guys divided the workload? I felt as well that there was a lot more from him on this record than in previous albums. So how was the workload between the two? And are you okay with sharing the spotlight?
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it just means I have a bit of an easier ride playing live. I can give it the beans a bit more. Um, but yeah, like it just made sense. Like at the end of the day, I can't sing, to be blunt. So like if we wanted singing on the album, someone else was gonna have to do it. So Sammy did it. I mean, I might learn to sing one day, but at the moment I'm just enjoying going out. So so yeah, like I'm happy sharing it really. At the end of the day, it's a team effort. As much as I like all the attention.
Do you guys go together into the lab and start to trade notes in terms of, the song is going like this. So I think if I come in here like this and you come in there like that, it's going to really work out well. Is that how it works with you guys?
Yeah, a lot of the time. So I have like a lyric book as well, where like I kind of have like loads of them, and I just sort of write loads and loads of like song ideas. And Sammy has ideas as well. So yeah, we do sit together and sort of collaborate and work out what goes where. And so yeah, it's quite a fun process actually, very collaborative.
What was a song on this record that's going to perhaps stay with you because of how difficult it was for you to nail it and make it onto the record? Perhaps one that give you a few gray hairs, not that you have any.
Ooh. To be honest, quite a lot of the album is fairly challenging. Mark of the Grave was well easy to record. That was fun. I don't do that much on it, so I was like, sweet, do that. I think like The Mistake was quite a demanding one, but I think for the most part, like it wasn't too bad. Like I'm a lot better than I used to be with like learning songs, because I used to be absolutely tragic at it and it used to take me hours. But now, like I think for the most part, it was like there wasn't one particular one that really like I got hung up on, luckily.
That's good. That's good. One last question for you. And that is when you look at this album and you look at what you guys have achieved with Conquering, what do you feel is the biggest strength that this album puts forward in terms of representing you guys today?
I just think it's our biggest one yet in terms of just sound and just sort of energy. Like we had so much pent up energy from the lockdown, and I personally feel like it translates that like live and on record. So yeah, I just think like this year has really solidified the fact we want to be in a band. Excuse me.
No problem.
But yeah, I think it's doing quite well. Sorry. Oh my god, I'm such a sickly person.
Well, that's why we're on Zoom. At least you can keep your germs on that side of the Atlantic, and I can keep and I can keep mine on this side of the Atlantic. So
I did a PCR test, and I just have a common cold. So boring cold.
I know that these days it seems like anytime somebody coughs, like there's this huge like mosh pit that opens up and the next thing that happens is the wall of death that comes back in. But I just feel like that's exactly what happens every single time. Sometimes when you cough within a crowd of people, it just opens up. Like the pit just opens up.
Space. It's if you want to get through a crowd, just cough or sneeze, and everyone's like, whoa.
Yeah, if you want a seat on the train, you just have to cough or sneeze, and then it opens right up.
Yeah, it was interesting when I had hay fever as well. That's a lot of people got out of my way for that. It was so funny, just sneezing all the time, just a jam.
Well, Justine, I hope you get better soon. Keep drinking your fluids, keep drinking your water and your teas. And thank you for taking the time, even though you're not feeling well. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me about the new record, Conquering Employed to Serve, coming out September 17th on Spine Farm Records. I really feel like this is your biggest sounding record to date. It just has a lot of volume, a lot of thickness, and it's always in your face.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you like the record. Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care. All the best.
You too. Bye.
Bye.